Yes, sir. It is the Devil's Puck Luck podcast where you know us as your host. Over here, it's Adam Armbrecht breaking down the Brooklyn Nets and the Locked On Nets podcast with Doug Norrie and your New York Football Giants on the One Giant podcast with my boy Andy Mack, joined as always by the, the pulse of the Devils fan base.
I like that.
20-plus year season ticket holder, Danny McDonough. And then obviously, crossover special here, man. We are bringing in Rivalry. It's rivalry time, friends, because we're talking with, from the Blue Seats, a New York Rangers podcast. Jimmy, my guy, listen, we talked about this. We're cordial. We're not here. We're not pot stirrers unless we're head-to-head and the Stanley Cup appearance is on the line. How are you, man? Enjoying some time on the Hockey Podcast Network?
Hey, listen, man. Cordial on the air, but off the air might be a different story. No, listen, in all honest to God seriousness, this is an honor, guys. Thank you so much for having me on. I truly appreciate it. My time here on the network has been absolutely amazing so far. I've only been here for almost 2 months, but these past 2 months have flown by so quick. I'm enjoying what I do. I really enjoy making content for Rangers fans and everybody else around the NHL. This network has just been amazing, and I'm just really honored to, even though it is a Devils podcast, I'm still really honored to be chatting with you guys and to be talking all things Metro Division.
Dude, that's what it's about, man. Crossovers, 100%. Opportunities to dive in a little bit deeper here. We're going to look at where we think the division is. We just did our episode on the Metro, so curious if you and Rangers fans alike will be offended by the way that we stacked everybody up here. But I'll let Danny take the lead on looking back just at how you guys felt from a Rangers perspective coming out of that playoff series. What obviously was a disappointment, but on our side, we're elated, right? We're taking this big leap forward. We're beating expectations last season. The Rangers, on the other hand, come up, I mean, there's no other way to frame it, right? Come up tragically short of what they wanted to accomplish.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it comes out to the Devils overachieved last year, and a lot of people would say the Rangers underachieved, being one of the, I guess you could say, main contenders for the Cup with all their acquisitions last year. So let's start at the end in Game 7. How do you feel about Adam Fox being undressed by Palat for that McLeod goal to make it 1-0 in Game 7? Huh? That must have been brutal for you, huh? It was awesome for us.
I could literally be here 2 hours to talk about that, but then again, I don't want to waste anybody's time with that. But let's just stay on the short end of the spectrum. That was just absolutely brutal to watch. I still haven't recovered from that, to be honest with you. Yeah, but in terms of that Game 7, look, just the entire series in general was just, like you said, it was just a massive disappointment for me personally as a Ranger fan and for pretty much the entire fan base, because I feel like not all Ranger fans, but half the fan base definitely had Stanley Cup expectations because, you had on paper, this was supposed to be the best team in the NHL, right? But as I always say, the talent has to come on the ice, right? They finished third in the Metro last year. They make the playoffs. Obviously, we get a Rangers-Devils first-round series, and we all know what happens. Rangers are absolutely dominant through the first 2 games in New Jersey, mind you. Then they come back home, lose both games at the Garden, including a Game 3 in overtime, thanks to Dougie Hamilton, who I think is going to be an absolute star with the Devils, just me personally. Then they go to Game 5, lose that one, come back to New York for Game 6, win that game, thankfully, force a Game 7, and then we all know what happens there. But I just feel personally that not only did the Rangers get outclassed, they got embarrassed. They should be very, very fortunate that series even went 7 games, because I said this on my own show. The only 2 people that showed up for the Rangers that entire series were Chris Kreider and Igor Shesterkin. That's it. Nobody else showed up. Panarin was nowhere to be found. He was awful. Zibanejad was awful. Lafreniere and Kakko, don't even get me started on those 2. Literally, nobody else on that roster showed up. It was Kreider and
the funny thing is,
and those 2 players aren't enough to help this Rangers team get over that playoff hump. I'm sorry, it's not enough.
The funny thing is that Adam and I have been talking about this a lot, obviously, and we were talking about it, while the Devils Rangers series was going on. Nico Hischier dominated the center ice position, really shutting Mika down, which was, I think, a massive factor in that series. And also, obviously, before Trouba took Timo Meier out, Timo Meier had an amazing series against the Rangers, even though he didn't get any points. You know, he was definitely an X factor in the sense of just making the Rangers team feel uncomfortable. Listen, he got in the head of Shesterkin. You know, he was pissing him off. You know, and you saw that game in and game out. We talked about it, you know, throughout the series. The great thing, and I agree with what you're saying, I think that obviously it was a big disappointment for Ranger fans. For us as Devils fans, that was almost like our Stanley Cup because we haven't in a while. You know, we haven't seen the playoffs in a while, and just seeing this team grow, seeing this team develop for us, we were elated, man. We were pumped up for it, obviously. So,
and where do you look at that? Because you mentioned there too. I think the last thing as far as that series goes, and then we're going to talk about obviously the offseason and what it looks like going ahead for these two rosters. But when you talk about that disappointment, listen, man, you heard it. And we talk about as being a New Jersey podcast covering a New Jersey team. It's always the case. Smaller market. You never feel like you're fully getting the credit or coverage you deserve. From a national level, that entire series, after those first two games, it was, well, obviously, plucky Devils, they gave it their best shot. But when you're a veteran-heavy team like the Rangers are, it exacerbates the disappointment of that series because there's arguably, if I was putting on my Rangers hat, no excuse to be up 2-0, even if you don't feel like you played as well as you should have. That's the point when you're supposed to steal the heart of a young team that's still getting experience in the playoffs, that still has a lot of learning to do, that brought in Timo Meier, as Danny mentioned. Yeah, a really critical piece and big going forward for the Devils, but he's still figuring it out, right? They made a trade for a guy that never even saw the ice for them on the defensive end because he got lost in Canada, as we always talk about. So was that the most frustrating point from a Rangers perspective? Hey, we are a veteran, talented team, and we just don't seem to know how to put this thing together when it matters?
Yes, that was definitely the most
simple answer. Yes.
No, listen, all jokes aside here, because, you know, me as a Ranger fan, obviously I don't like the Devils, but in all seriousness, the Devils were just the better team. They were more speedy than the Rangers were. Their scoring was much better. Their defense was much better, which I've been complaining about with the Rangers for years. They don't play any defense in front of their goalie. Don't get me started on that. Again, Shesterkin stood in his head. But for me, the turning point, yes, you mentioned Nico Hischier, you mentioned Timo Meier. I 100% get that. But for me, the turning point for that series was when the Devils turned to Akira Schmid. Akira Schmid played out of his freaking mind. A kid that came out of absolutely bumble-you-know-what nowhere and absolutely carried the Devils on his back to the conference semifinals. That is a very fascinating story in and of itself. So, Devils fans, you definitely found yourself, in my opinion, your future goalie. Akira Schmid is going to be an absolute star. That, to me, was the turning point. Not just the fact that the Rangers just flat out could not score. They couldn't help out their goalie. The Devils were just overall the better team. They were more speedy. The Devils are one of the more complete teams in the National Hockey League. And that's not just for this past year. That's going into this year as well.
Yeah, that's where calm down.
Yeah, I got excited. You know?
Now that's where we're going to go next. It's about this offseason. And by the way, and it's starting to rumble that way. Like the NHL at large seems to be acknowledging where the Devils are set up to be as a young core and what they have going forward. So we're going to dive into offseason, what the Rangers did or did not accomplish for themselves, and where they stand in the Metro Division. But before we do, Danny, why don't you go ahead, Jimmy? Take your break. Take a break here. Get a cup of coffee, whatever it looks like. As Danny tells us a little bit about DraftKings.
Oh, it's time. New customers you better download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code
THPN.
Bet just $5 to score $150 in bonus bets instantly. That's code
THPN.
Only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In Massachusetts, call 800-327-5050 or visit gamblinghelplinema.org. In New York, call 877-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY, New York. In Kansas, call 1-800-522-4700. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort. In West Virginia, gambling problem? 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. All games regulated by the West Virginia Lottery. Please play responsibly in partnership with Hollywood Casino at Charlestown Races in Connecticut. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. 21 plus, most eligible states, but age varies by jurisdiction.
See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details on state-specific responsible gambling resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. 1 boost per eligible game. Opt-in required. Max bet $50, 10 plus leg required for 100% boost. Eligibility, wagering, and deposit restrictions. Why? They do certainly apply.
They sure do.
All right. By the way, if you want to go over on DraftKings, you'll see that the Devils are right there with the Carolina Hurricanes and expectations to win the Metro. You can go even bigger and look at some of those Stanley Cup odds. Jimmy, talking about From the Blue Seats, a Rangers podcast, obviously a part of the Hockey Podcast Network family. When we look at this offseason, keep it down, Dan.
Excuse me.
When we trying to run a podcast here, when we look at this offseason, and we think about going forward now, we can talk about the division, but obviously we're incredibly excited about what Fitzgerald accomplished for the Devils. Some players go away. Obviously, we knew that was going to happen, but they've bolstered the offensive depth. They've added in some other veterans on the defensive side here as well. We talked about the expectations maybe for an Akira Schmid and Vitek and what that's going to look like in net. Maybe that's the biggest quote question mark for them. How do you feel about the Rangers this offseason coming out of a disappointment, going and getting a player like Kane, right? Making moves that maybe didn't pan out at the highest level. Where do you stand on the Rangers right now and what they did or did not do this offseason?
Oh, man. I could rant on how the Rangers didn't need Patrick Kane for hours because I still don't understand why they basically got him for a bag of chips and a remote control. That's it. And
that might have been too expensive.
Yeah, exactly. But no, listen, I like Patrick Kane. I respect him. He's a 3-time Stanley Cup champion. I get all of that. The man is 35 going on 36 years old. He's not the same Patrick Kane anymore. And plus, he didn't really look, he had some bright moments. I get it. But you got him to get you over the hump in the playoffs, and obviously that did not happen. Now, what I did like is that they got Vladimir Tarasenko, and unfortunately, they did not get him back. He's now with the Ottawa Senators on a 1-year, $5 million contract, which, again, is a bit of a hefty payload, in my personal opinion, but it is a 1-year deal, so we'll see how that goes. I wish nothing but the best for Vladdy in Ottawa, but I really would have liked it if they got Vladimir Tarasenko back, because at least he showed you a lot more bright moments than Patrick Kane, but that's just my personal opinion. As far as this offseason is concerned, I like what they did. I mean, it was a bunch of 1-2-year contracts, not worth a lot of money. I mean, obviously, you look at guys like Blake Wheeler, who's reunited with Jacob Trouba. You look at Riley Nash, Nick Bonino, Tyler Pitlick, who I think is a very underrated signing because he's a bottom 6 forward who provides great depth. He's great on the penalty kill, so I really like the Pitlick signing in general. Obviously, you look at the big one in Jonathan Quick, 1 year, $825,000. He finally gets to come home to play for his childhood team that he grew up idolizing. So maybe Igor Shesterkin can learn a thing or two from him. Look, he's not the same Jonathan Quick as we're opposed to seeing, but he did win a Stanley Cup just recently with the Vegas Golden Knights. So now he's a 3-time Stanley Cup champion, obviously looking to end his career on another high note because, in my personal opinion, I think Quick has at least 2 or 3 more good years left in him. I know he gets hurt a lot recently, but I still like the signing of Jonathan Quick. I think it'll help that he has that veteran leadership. He has that championship caliber experience. So I like what the Rangers did this offseason. Is it enough for me to believe that they're going to win a Stanley Cup? Unfortunately, I do not think so, because I think this division is going to come down to New Jersey and Carolina again. I do think the Rangers are going to finish 3rd in the Metro again, and we will probably get another Rangers-Devils first-round playoff series, and I will not be looking forward to that again.
All right, right back to the conversation. After we let you know that even if you're not going on vacation, summer's still all about being in a vacation state of mind. Whether I want to be rocking out to my favorite old school band, Weezer, or just need a little bit of time to retreat inside my own head, I love creating my own summer soundtrack by popping in my Raycon wireless earbuds. There's obviously a lot going on in the summer. Sometimes you need to get pumped up when you're going to go get together with a bunch of friends, or maybe you want to go ahead and keep calm with some guided meditation.
All I can tell you is that Raycons are the best way to listen. You can use earbud tap functions to toggle between 3 customizable sound profiles, noise isolation, and awareness mode as well. Raycons have a 32-hour battery life, including 8 hours of playtime, so you can listen to what you want, when you want, for a really long time. They come with custom gel tips for the most comfortable in-ear fit, and they start at half the price of other premium audio brands, but they sound just as good. And Raycons come with a 30-day happiness guarantee, so you really can't lose. Create your own soundtrack with Raycon right now. Listeners of the Devil's Puck Luck podcast can get 15% off of their Raycon order at buyraycon.com/THPN, just like our network. That's buyraycon.com/THPN to save 15% off on Raycons. Buyraycons.com/THPN.
So this is where it gets interesting, right? Because we just talked about our division.
Yeah, we'll just to rewind a little bit here. I think you guys losing Tarasenko is a massive, massive hit. I think that veteran leadership you guys are going to miss. I think you're relying a lot now on your younger core, which I think struggled a little bit. And I think you can agree when it comes to, obviously the depth players too for the Rangers. But Bonino is a great pickup. I agree with you there. The Rangers are always going to be a contender because of Shesterkin and because of the defensive core. I think that we can agree on that. And, he's always going to be a juggernaut for teams in the playoffs. I mean, you saw it with the Devils-Rangers series. I think Shesterkin literally kept the Rangers in that series. I think the Devils could have won the last, 4 in a row. It could have been a 6-game series, if it wasn't for Shesterkin. He played phenomenally. But I have it a little bit different. I think the Rangers are going to take a step back. I think the Rangers are going to be 4th in the Metro, and I think that they're going to get the first wild card. I think the Penguins are going to be tough. I think the Penguins had a down year. I think with Erik Karlsson coming in for the Penguins, you're not going to keep Crosby, Malkin, Letang, and Karlsson down. And they're going to have, to me, an 100-point season. I think they're going to have 100 points, 101 points. And I think the Penguins and the Rangers are going to be battling out for that 3rd seed in the Metro. But, for me, it all comes down to one thing for the Devils and the Rangers. It's the continued great goalie playing, right? Yeah. It's obviously Akira Schmidt, if he's going to get the nod and be that number 1 goalie. Adam and I kind of think that Akira will get that number 1 role, but it's going to be kind of a 1A and 1B with Vitek. I think that they're going to kind of do, 60-40 games this year. I don't know what you think, Adam, but I think it's going to be close to that with Akira and Vitek. But obviously, Shesterkin's your number 1, and you're going to rely, like you said, on Jonathan Quick to have those games where he can step in and get some wins for the Rangers. So,
right.
No, sorry to tell you, Jimmy, but I think that the Rangers are not going to be 3rd. I think they're going to be 4th. That's my prediction. I know Adam thinks that they're going to be 3rd. He has them as 3rd as well, like you do, but yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I don't understand that same hierarchy there. Still, with the Penguins being a concern and them coming kind of nipping at their heels there. But you mentioned it, the hierarchy. And that's really what we were curious about, was just the perception around the division, right? It does come down to the Hurricanes and to the Devils to me right now. This past season created that hierarchy. It's those 2 teams. And then it's how you look at the Rangers, how you look at the Penguins. We feel like the Islanders are ready to take a little bit of a tumble here as well. So that next tier, though, it's like maybe the Rangers need to carve out being the kings of that next tier in the Metro, securing another playoff run here and seeing how it pans out. Whereas we know, unlike a lot of other sports, one singular player, when you have the goaltender like the Rangers do, that run is possible. Sure. I guess it's just teetering on that balance of, you had him last year and you couldn't get over that hump as well.
That's exactly where I was getting at. And going back to what you said about Pittsburgh, I think this is Pittsburgh's last chance to try and win another Stanley Cup before Crosby out, or potentially out the door. Chris Letang, I thought he should have retired 2 years ago. Give Letang credit. 2 strokes and he's still out there playing. God bless him. But I think it's time to hang it up after this season.
That's interesting you say that. I think that when Chris Letang, when he comes back, he has, even strokes and all, you're right. It's unbelievable to see what's gone on in his life, on his personal level and his health level. He is still an aggressive player. He's still a strong player. He plays with such grit when he comes back off, obviously his injuries, his strokes. It's insane to me to see what he can do. And listen, I like Chris Letang. I'm a Devils fan, diehard Devils fan. I really like Chris Letang, and we talked about this too. He was a guy that if the Penguins didn't pick him back up and give him a contract, I would have loved to see him on the Devils on the back end as a veteran leader, but I've always liked Chris Letang, and I agree with you 100%. I think this is the Pens really their last shot to go for a Stanley Cup run.
All right, listen. No, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
No. I'm sorry, but just to kind of recap on that, because I was going to say, if they don't at least make the Stanley Cup final this year, especially with the acquisition of Erik Karlsson for everything that they gave up for him, they might as well blow it up because they ain't doing a damn thing anytime soon. They don't do it here.
And we said this about Washington as well, right? Different tiers in terms of expectations, but two teams in the Penguins and in the Capitals that have veteran talent, high-level veteran talent as far as their established history in the NHL, right? But it's about kind of riding out that era and then preparing for what's going to come after. We're going to close out here. And by the way, as we know, we'll connect obviously with Jimmy throughout the season when it comes to these matchups with the New Jersey Devils. We'll talk about series predictions. We'll talk about very friendly gloating, depending on who comes out on top. But as we used to do before we got on this network, we started a little fun segment called If Not Hockey, What? Where we take a look at the time, Devils players, and if they weren't playing hockey, just based on appearance, what do we think these guys would have been doing for a profession? So we're going to go ahead and get Jimmy involved on this here first. Let's go ahead. We'll start with the Devils player here. Tyler Toffoli acquired this offseason, obviously. Jimmy, you can take a look at your screen here. If not hockey, what? Just based on appearance, you and Danny, take a look at the screen. Danny has no idea about this either. Right. And by the way, it is solely based on my own mental makeup as to what I think this person would turn into. Danny, why don't you go ahead? Just so Jimmy has
I'm going to go ahead and go first here. I think that he would be a very successful finance guy.
Oh, okay.
And be involved in hedge
fund. That's exactly where I was going.
Yeah, hedge fund guy. You know
okay,
I mean?
Very interesting. Now, the problem here is you're both horribly wrong because what we were going with here for was park ranger. He would have been an excellent park ranger. We're talking about a guy just walking around the state of New Jersey, putting out fires, reminding people about safe distances, and hanging your food high in the air.
It's really the Instagram picture.
To avoid bears. You got to avoid.
Ain't no way he's going to be no damn park ranger. Are you joking? Ranger. Come on.
Listen, this game is flawless in terms of the logic because it's all happening inside my head. Now let's turn over to a Rangers player before we close out here. This one I think should be a good one. I actually expect this should be a hit for both of you. We're going with Chris Kreider. Look at that handsome gentleman, the alternate captain for your New York Rangers, Jimmy. If not hockey, what would Chris Kreider be? Jimmy, why don't you take the lead here?
Yeah, go ahead, Jimmy.
That's a really tough one. I'm gonna go out on a limb here. I could be completely off base about this, but I can definitely see Chris Kreider as a pharmacist.
Pharmacist.
Interesting. All right.
Pills. You know what? Hold on real quick here. If he's a pharmacist, you're wrong, Jimmy. But if he was a pharmacist, that would be the creepiest scenario to walk in with your prescription and you see this dude with this mustache just going, and 38, 39, 40 pills for you, good sir. Danny, where'd you go?
I'm going to go, I can see him like outside a nightclub being the head security guy. You know what I mean?
That's not bad.
You know what, Danny? You're not wrong on that. I was thinking that, but something in my head was telling me I could kind of see him in the medical field. So I don't know, man. I know I'm wrong, but still.
Yeah.
We're both wrong.
Well, you know, you're both wrong. Yeah. Also, not going to be working outside of a nightclub. The obvious answer, the only answer, was swashbuckler. Chris Kreider would be out there on the high seas, pirate on the shoulder, just looking like a god darn
pirate.
Yeah, he's going to be out there, dude. Listen, and by the way, if Chris Kreider shaves, this doesn't really apply.
No,
so we're going to need to maintain the facial hair here. But obviously, Chris Kreider, a swashbuckler on the seven seas, plundering, pillaging, everything associated with that. There,
let me say this: Chris Kreider better not shave off that luscious beard of his. I'm telling you that right now. If he does, we're gonna have issues.
There you go. So
I don't think he will.
That, my friends, is a little game called If Not Hockey, What? We're going to be doing it throughout this season with all of our crossover podcasts.
We got to bring it back more often,
Yeah.
I've missed those. You kind of stumped me on a few of them.
Yeah,
but of course you're right. Obviously,
you can never cross paths with what's going on inside my mind. Bottom line is Jimmy from the Blue Seats Rangers podcast on the Hockey Podcast Network, man. Thank you so much for crossing up with us. We'll do it throughout the year, as we like to say, and remind everybody, obviously, where can they find you when it comes to Twitter, when it comes to YouTube, when it comes to getting the podcast?
First of all, gentlemen, this was such a pleasure. Thank you guys for having me on. I'll have to return the favor and have you guys on my show one day. We'll make that happen throughout the season. But you can pretty much find me everywhere on all audio platforms: Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio. I'm not on YouTube yet. I'm still working on the beginning stages of that. Hopefully that'll happen in the future, but not on YouTube just yet. But for now, you can still find me on all audio platforms. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at BlueSeats94. Use hashtag BlueSeats to interact with me as I give you my unbiased opinion on my favorite team, the New York Rangers. I call it Rangers analysis with no punches pulled because I tell the honest truth when it comes to my team. If
Wait,
they,
Jimmy,
if they don't like it, they don't have to listen. But that's where you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at BlueSeats94.
Give me your predictions for the Metro, the top 4 teams in the Metro. Give me your actual prediction.
So this is obviously subject to change, but as of right now, because I know we're going to do a whole season preview thing this week, I'm really excited for that. But as of right now, I have Carolina winning the Metro. I have the Devils finishing second. Okay. I have the Rangers finishing third. And then I have the Pittsburgh Penguins as the wild card team. That's where it stands as of right now. That's subject to change, but that's where I stand.
Of course, yeah. It's obviously very early. So you have the Devils sweeping the Rangers in the first round.
Inappropriate. We're not even in the season yet. Man. Say that. We start out by saying we're cordial, it's all good, and then just call blank sweep, bring out the brooms well ahead of the season. Listen,
I'm not gonna do the Sean Morash thing when he said after the Rangers were up 2-0 that the Rangers would sweep, right? That was like the kiss of death.
Oh yeah, that was the all-time jinx, man.
That was a disgrace. That was an absolute disgrace. What happened?
Hated by Devils and Rangers fans alike on that particular take there for 100%. Sean Morash. But a reminder for everybody, obviously, when it comes to the Devils Puck Luck podcast, you get us on YouTube, Devils Puck Luck. You get us on Instagram and TikTok at
Devils Puck Luck.
Over on Twitter at NJDevilsPL, at Adam Armbrecht, at Danny the Face. You know that we'll be doing episodes all off season long, breaking down the division, breaking down the key players, and how we expect this New Jersey Devils team to take the next big step forward. Until next time, man, I guess like Chris Kreider.
Whoa. Easy here with your tagline.
On the high seas, let those dirty Ranger Pirates go down with the ship. We'll see you next time, boys.